Hi everyone, you're on the Forsaken Joe channel, and today's story will hit you like a punch in the gut. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw my ring glinting under the soft lights of that rooftop lounge. But it wasn't on my hand, it was in her purse. Alongside it was the note I had slipped in earlier that day, just a test. Something I thought would give me peace of mind. Instead, it sent my wife, Lana, into a full-blown panic in front of everyone. She froze mid-conversation with her colleagues, her face draining of color as she read the words I'd written. How many lies fit in one smile? She shoved the purse under the table like it was a live bomb, but I saw the tremor in her hands. I wasn't there physically, but a friend of mine was, and he was feeding me every detail. I'll admit it, I'm not the guy who handles things calmly. I overthink, I spiral. For weeks I'd been noticing things that didn't make sense. Her sudden late nights, the new perfume she started wearing, one I didn't recognize. And then, the worst, a hotel keycard I found in the pocket of her coat. She claimed it was from a work event. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But that night, I couldn't ignore the voice in my head screaming that something was horribly wrong. That's why I set the trap. My ring, the note. A tiny, desperate move from a man who was too scared to ask his wife if she still loved him. What I didn't expect was what happened after she found it. Lana didn't call me right away. Instead, she disappeared from the party. She left her friends without a word, and for 2 hours, I had no idea where she went. When she finally came home, her eyes were red like she'd been crying, and she didn't say a single word. I sat there, staring at her, waiting for her to explain. She didn't. She just placed her purse down slowly, like she was afraid of what I might do. And that's when I realized the look on her face wasn't just guilt. It was fear. But fear of what? Me, or something, or someone else. After that night, the silence in our house felt like a living thing. Lana barely looked at me, and when she did, it was with this strange mix of exhaustion and something else. It wasn't anger. It was like she was carrying a weight that I couldn't see. I didn't bring up the ring or the note again, partly because I didn't know how, and partly because I was terrified of what I might hear if I pushed too hard. 2 nights later, everything took a darker turn. It was around 1:30 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Lana was asleep beside me, or at least she pretended to be. I picked up the phone, and that's when I saw it. A missed call from an unknown number and a single voicemail. The message was less than 10 seconds long, but it froze my blood. All I could hear was a man's voice whispering, "You shouldn't have done that, Harold. She's not safe." I didn't recognize the voice. My first thought was that it had to be some twisted prank. But the way he said my name, slowly, like he was savoring it, told me this wasn't random. Someone knew me. Someone knew us. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I kept replaying that voicemail, trying to make sense of it. Why wasn't she safe? What did I do? Was this connected to the ring and the note? The next morning, I asked Lana if she knew anyone who might be messing with us. She barely looked up from her coffee, shrugged, and said, "No one. Why?" Her voice was steady, but her hand trembled when she picked up her cup. That was the moment I realized she was lying to me. I couldn't take it anymore. I started digging. I went through her purse when she was showering, something I swore I'd never do. And that's when I found the second note. It was crumpled at the bottom of her bag, written in messy handwriting. "You have one chance to tell him before I do." My heart nearly stopped. Who was this note from? And what was she supposed to tell me? That evening, I confronted her. I held up the note, my hands shaking, and asked her what the hell was going on. For a moment, she looked like she might come clean. Her eyes welled up, and she opened her mouth. But then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, turned pale, and without a word, she grabbed her coat and walked out the door. I stood there in our kitchen, holding that note, realizing I might have just lost her to something, or someone, I couldn't even see yet. I'm not proud of what I did next, but the moment she walked out, I knew I couldn't just sit there like a fool. My mind was spinning with questions, and my heart felt like it was caught in a vice. I grabbed my keys and followed her. I didn't even think about what I'd say if she saw me. I just needed answers. The streets were quiet, the kind of eerie silence that makes your skin crawl. I kept my headlights dim as I trailed behind her car, careful not to get too close. My pulse pounded in my ears, and every time she turned a corner, I felt like I was 1 second away from losing her. After about 20 minutes, she pulled into the parking lot of a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. My stomach dropped. A motel. She didn't even hesitate. She parked, got out, and went straight to one of the doors like she'd been there before. I couldn't breathe. For a few seconds, I just sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands went numb. I wanted to storm in and demand the truth, but I was terrified of what I might find. I waited. 5 minutes felt like an hour. Then, just when I was about to completely lose my nerve, the door opened again. A man stepped out. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I was, but he wasn't Mason. He wasn't anyone I recognized. He looked older, maybe late 40s, with a stiff posture and a cigarette dangling from his lips. He handed her something small, something wrapped in a piece of paper, and she tucked it into her coat pocket. No hug, no kiss, no obvious affection. But the tension in the air was palpable even from where I sat. She didn't go inside the motel. She just stood there talking to him, her head bent, her hands fidgeting. I cracked my car window to hear anything I could, but all I caught was a single phrase from him. "If you don't tell him, I will." I felt my entire world tilt. My first instinct was to jump out and confront them both, but fear glued me to the seat. What was she hiding that someone else would threaten to tell me? Why was she meeting a stranger at a rundown motel in the middle of the night? By the time she got back into her car, my thoughts were racing so fast, I could barely think straight. I followed her home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. When we pulled into our driveway, I killed my engine and just sat there for a while, watching her through the windshield. She didn't look like the woman I married. She looked hunted. That night, she climbed into bed beside me and didn't say a word, but I couldn't close my eyes. All I could hear was that man's voice echoing in my head. "If you don't tell him, I will." The next morning, I didn't even bother pretending to go about my day like normal. While Lana left early for work, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee until it went cold, my mind replaying every second of the previous night. I knew I couldn't keep doing this, sitting back, watching my marriage crumble, pretending not to see the cracks. Whoever that man was, he knew something about my wife, something serious enough to threaten her. And I wasn't going to get answers by waiting around. I decided to find him. By noon, I was parked outside that same rundown motel. I felt ridiculous, sitting there like some desperate stalker. But the thought of that man's voice, calm, firm, and threatening, kept me rooted in place. Around 1 p.m., I spotted him. Same guy, same stiff posture, cigarette between his fingers like it was part of him. He wasn't hard to recognize. He had this kind of coldness in the way he moved, like someone who'd seen too much of the world and didn't care anymore. I didn't think, I just got out of the car and walked straight toward him. My voice cracked when I spoke, but I tried to sound steady. "Who are you? What do you want with my wife?" He turned slowly, squinting at me like he was sizing me up, and then smirked. "You must be Harold," he said, his tone calm, but with something unsettling beneath it. "She didn't tell you, did she?" I felt my chest tighten. "Tell me what?" I asked, my voice louder than I intended. He took a slow drag of his cigarette and looked me up and down like I was some clueless idiot, which, let's be real, I probably was at that moment. "I'm not the enemy here," he said finally, exhaling smoke between his words. "But she's in deeper than you think, and if she doesn't talk, I will." "In deeper with what?" I demanded, feeling this mix of fear and anger rise up. I wanted to shake him, to force the truth out of him, but something in his expression stopped me cold. He wasn't bluffing. He looked like a man carrying a truth so heavy it could ruin lives. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Ask her about the money. Ask her about the deal she made. She's running out of time." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart hammering and my thoughts spinning like a tornado. What money? What deal? I didn't even know where to begin. I drove home in a daze. The image of that man burned into my mind. When Lana came home that evening, I tried to act normal. She kissed me on the cheek, gave me a tired smile, and went straight to the shower. I stared at her purse sitting on the counter, my hands itching to search it again. I didn't, but I knew I wouldn't sleep until I figured this out. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I finally broke the silence. "Lana, what's going on with you? I followed you last night." The words felt like knives in my throat, but I couldn't hold them in any longer. She froze. I could feel her body tense next to mine, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't say anything for a long moment, and when she did, her voice was so soft I almost missed it. "Harold, There are things you don't understand, things I never wanted you to know. That's when I knew this wasn't just about cheating. This was something far, far bigger. And I wasn't sure if I even wanted the truth. I'll never forget the way Lana looked at me that night. She didn't look like my wife anymore. She looked like someone cornered, trapped between a lie too heavy to carry and a truth too dangerous to reveal. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she clutched the blanket like it was the only thing holding her together. For a long time, she said nothing, just stared at the ceiling, her jaw tight, like she was waiting for me to yell, to demand answers. But I didn't. I just sat there, my chest aching, whispering, "Please, just tell me. Whatever it is, I need to know." When she finally spoke, her voice was so low, I had to lean in to hear her. "It's not about you, Harold. It's not even about us. It's something I did before we even met, something I thought I'd buried for good. But I guess the past doesn't stay dead." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but she kept going, faster now, like she was afraid that if she stopped, she wouldn't be able to start again. She told me about Mason, but not in the way I expected. They weren't lovers. At least, she swore they weren't. Mason knew something about her past, something she had done with a man named Victor, the man I'd seen at the motel. She said Victor wasn't just some random guy. He was someone she owed. "I made a deal years ago, Harold," she whispered, tears streaking down her face. "It was supposed to be over, but now they want more. They always want more." I didn't know what to say. My mind was trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. "What kind of deal?" I asked, my voice shaking, but she just shook her head. "You don't want to know. If I tell you, you'll look at me differently, and I can't—" She trailed off, burying her face in her hands. I wanted to hold her, to comfort her, but something inside me told me she was right. Whatever she had done, whatever Victor was holding over her, it wasn't something I could unhear. The rest of the night was a blur. I sat in the dark living room, listening to the faint sound of her crying in our bedroom. My mind went back to that note I'd found in her purse. "You have one chance to tell him before I do." If Victor was serious, that meant I didn't have much time to figure out what was happening before he blew everything apart. I felt like I was standing on a cliff, and one wrong step would send both of us over the edge. The next morning, Lana acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed a tune while buttering toast, and kissed me on the cheek like we weren't living under the shadow of something sinister. But I couldn't play along anymore. I needed answers, even if I had to dig them up myself. So, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone and locked myself in the garage. Her messages were mostly mundane, work chats, texts from friends. But then I found a hidden folder in her email, one she clearly thought I'd never see. And there it was. Dozens of messages from Victor. Some of them were weeks old, some as recent as last night. Most of them were short, cryptic. "We're not done. Time's running out. You owe me, Lana." But the last message made my blood run cold. It was just 5 words. "Tell him, or I will." I didn't sleep at all after reading those emails. The words burned into my mind like acid, each one hinting at something darker than I could have ever imagined about the woman I thought I knew better than myself. I stared at my phone for hours, reading Victor's messages over and over, feeling like I was losing my grip on reality. What could Lana possibly owe him? Why did he have so much control over her? And why the hell was he threatening to tell me something she was too terrified to say? By the time morning light seeped through the blinds, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit in the dark waiting for more cryptic threats. I was going to find Victor and drag the truth out of him if I had to. My hands shook as I searched his name online, combed through her contacts, and cross-referenced the address he'd mentioned once in an old email. I found a lead, a small garage on the outskirts of town that was supposedly his. When I pulled up there that afternoon, my chest was tight, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The building was shabby, with rusted metal doors and a faded sign that read, "Victor's Auto." It looked deserted. For a second, I wondered if I was being stupid, if this was all just some bizarre misunderstanding. But then I saw him, standing outside with that same rigid posture, cigarette in hand, just like the night at the motel. "Victor!" I shouted, my voice breaking in the empty parking lot. He turned, narrowed his eyes, and smirked in a way that made my stomach twist. "Ah, Harold," he said casually, like we were old friends bumping into each other at the store. "Finally decided to stop lurking and start asking questions?" "Cut the crap," I snapped, my fists clenched at my sides. "What do you want from my wife? What did she do?" Victor laughed, a low, cold laugh that made my skin crawl. He took a slow drag from his cigarette, blowing smoke into the air as if he had all the time in the world. What she did? He repeated, tilting his head. You think this is just about her? You really have no idea, do you? I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth, I said, stepping closer, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. I probably looked pathetic, but I didn't care anymore. Victor studied me for a moment, then flicked his cigarette to the ground. Fine. You want the truth? Ask her about the money she stole. Ask her about 2019. Ask her why she's been paying me every month to keep my mouth shut. His words hit me like a truck. Stole? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you talking about? Ask her, he said again, his tone colder now. But hurry, Harold. She's running out of time, and so are you. I stood there, frozen, as he walked back inside the garage, leaving me alone with more questions than I could handle. Stole money? Paying him off? 2019. My mind raced as I drove home, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I got back, Lana was in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal. I slammed Victor's words down like a hammer. What happened in 2019? What did you steal, Lana? Her entire body went rigid, the color draining from her face. She didn't even try to deny it. She just looked at me with this hollow expression and whispered, "You don't want to know. If I tell you, everything we have will fall apart." The silence between us was suffocating. Lana just stood there, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the kitchen counter, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I felt my stomach twist into knots as I waited for her to speak. "You don't want to know," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. But I wasn't having it this time. I slammed my hand down on the table, not in anger, but in desperation. "I need to know, Lana. I've been driving myself insane, wondering what the hell is going on with you, with us. You're not the woman I married anymore. You're hiding something that's tearing this marriage apart, and if you don't tell me now, I swear I'm walking out that door." Something inside her cracked. She sank into the chair opposite me, her eyes glistening, and for a moment, I almost regretted pushing her. Then she said the words that knocked the wind out of me. "In 2019, I stole money. A lot of it. Not from Victor, but from the company I worked for back then. I was drowning in debt, Harold. I made a stupid, desperate choice, and I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. But I didn't. Victor found out. He was a consultant for the company at the time, and instead of turning me in, he offered me a way out, for a price." I stared at her, unable to process the words. Lana, the woman I thought was the most principled person I knew, had stolen money? A way out? What does that even mean? I asked, my voice sharp, my heart pounding. She buried her face in her hands. "He told me he'd cover it up, make it disappear. But in return, I had to pay him back every month. And I did. For years. I thought it would end, but now he's asking for more, and I don't have it. If I don't give him what he wants, he'll tell the company, the police, and you." I was stunned into silence. I wanted to scream at her, to ask her why she hadn't trusted me, why she had let a stranger control her for years. But beneath my anger was something heavier, fear. If Victor had that kind of leverage over her, what else was he capable of? I pictured the note I'd found, his warning that she had one chance to tell me. It wasn't just about money. He was threatening her, manipulating her, and I'd walked right into it. "You should have told me," I said finally, my voice cracking. "I don't care how bad it was. You should have told me instead of letting this guy control our lives." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was scared you'd leave me. Scared you'd see me as a criminal, as someone who doesn't deserve you. I thought I could fix it on my own." I sat back, my mind racing, trying to figure out what to do. We were way past a simple confession. This wasn't just a secret. This was blackmail, and Victor wasn't going to stop until he squeezed every last drop out of her. I realized then that I couldn't just wait for him to make his next move. If I didn't do something, he was going to destroy her, and maybe us. That night, while Lana slept fitfully beside me, I made a decision. I was going to confront Victor one last time, but this time, I wouldn't go in blind. I needed to know exactly what he had on her, and I needed to find a way to turn the tables before he dragged both of us down. I didn't care if I had to dig into his life, his past, or his dirty secrets. I was going to get the truth and end this. I didn't know it then, But that decision would lead me to something I never could have imagined, something far worse than just a debt or a secret. The next day, I drove back to Victor's garage with a plan. I'd spent the entire night digging up everything I could find on him. Turns out, Victor wasn't the untouchable mastermind he pretended to be. He had his own trail of debts, lawsuits, and a few skeletons in his closet that could bury him if the right people found out. Armed with that information, I walked into his office, my hands shaking but my mind sharper than it had been in weeks. "Victor," I said, dropping a folder on his desk. "We're done here. You don't get another cent from Lana. You breathe another threat, and this—" I tapped the folder, filled with printouts and screenshots. "Goes straight to the cops and every person you've ever screwed over. You want to play dirty? I can play too." He didn't flinch right away, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hesitation. He leaned back, chewing on his cigarette, and finally smirked. "You've got more bite than I thought, Harold." He pushed the folder back toward me. "Fine, we're done. She's off the hook, but don't come looking for me again." I walked out of that garage feeling like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally exhaled. When I got home, I told Lana everything. I expected her to be furious that I'd gone behind her back, but instead, she just broke down crying. She hugged me like her life depended on it, whispering thank you over and over again. We spent the entire night talking, really talking, for the first time in years. She told me everything, every detail about her mistake, her fear, and how she felt like she'd been living under a shadow she couldn't escape. And for the first time, I believed her. The following weeks were hard, but we started rebuilding. We deleted every trace of Victor from our lives. We even started therapy together, not because we were broken, but because we didn't want to let this darkness define us. It wasn't easy, but something shifted between us. We stopped pretending everything was fine and started being honest, raw, and real with each other. And weirdly enough, it brought us closer than we'd been in years. Looking back, I realized that the ring, the note, all of it was just a spark that forced the truth to come out. If I hadn't pushed, if I hadn't been that paranoid, we might still be living in lies. Now, for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're actually free. What do you think? Have you ever uncovered a secret that changed your relationship, for better or worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to subscribe. You're on the Forsaken Joe channel, where the wildest true stories find their way to the light. See you in the next one.